She woke up one morning and felt the weight of the world collapse on her shoulders, as if life had finally decided to test her limits. Everything she once loved, her job, her partner, her sense of direction, had disappeared within weeks. She stared at the ceiling, wondering how someone could lose everything and still breathe. The quietness in her room was louder than any noise she had ever heard, making her realize how empty her life had suddenly become. She had always believed she was strong, but now strength felt like a distant memory. She knew this moment was either the end of her story or the beginning of something she had never imagined. She walked outside barefoot, feeling the cold morning breeze hit her face like a reminder that she was still alive. Life had taken everything from her, but it hadn't taken her ability to move forward. She decided to give herself 30 days, not to change the world, but to rediscover who she was beneath the pain. On the first day, she sat with a notebook and wrote down everything she feared, letting each word bleed out like a confession. It shocked her how heavy her fears were once she saw them on paper. It also shocked her how freeing it felt to acknowledge them. By the third day, she forced herself to clean the small apartment she had stopped caring about after losing her job. The dust on her shelves felt like a reflection of her own neglected heart. As she wiped the dirt away, she felt a strange sense of renewal rising inside her. She started spending her mornings sitting on the rooftop, watching the sunrise paint new possibilities across the sky. Each sunrise felt like a promise that life still had something left for her. She had lost everything, but this daily light reminded her she still had time. On the seventh day, she walked into a nearby cafe she used to love but hadn't visited since her breakup. The scent of coffee brought back memories she tried to bury, but this time she didn't run from them. Instead, she sat alone and allowed herself to breathe through the discomfort. A stranger noticed the sadness in her eyes and offered her a simple smile that felt like warmth after a long winter. She didn't speak to him, but that smile stayed with her all day. It reminded her that healing often starts with small, unexpected kindness. By the 10th day, she felt strong enough to open the email account she had avoided after losing her job. Most of the messages were reminders of what she had failed to keep, but buried inside was one unread message from a former mentor. The message simply said, "When you're ready, your purpose will reveal itself." Those words replayed in her mind for hours, echoing through her thoughts like a challenge she wasn't sure she could face. She had prayed for answers, but she never expected them to come in such soft whispers. She realized that purpose doesn't shout. It appears when the noise inside us finally quiets down. On the 12th day, she decided to take a long walk through the city streets she once rushed through without appreciating. The people, the sounds, even the chaos seemed different, now that she was seeing everything through the lens of rebuilding. She began to understand that losing everything had forced her to notice the small details she had always ignored. She started journaling every night, tracking her emotions as if she were mapping a journey back to herself. The entries were messy and imperfect, but they were honest. For the first time in months, she felt connected to her own truth. On the 10th day, she realized she hadn't cried in a week, and the absence of tears surprised her. Pain was still present, but it no longer controlled her every thought. There was a quiet strength developing inside her, one that didn't need permission to grow. She began reading books about resilience, faith, and inner transformation, hoping to find something that resonated with her story. Every word she read felt like a stepping stone toward a version of herself she had forgotten existed. She started to believe that maybe losing everything wasn't punishment, but preparation. On the 18th day, she volunteered at a small shelter where people came seeking food and comfort. She expected to feel overwhelmed, but instead she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: purpose. The gratitude in their eyes made her realize how much she still had to give. A woman at the shelter told her, "Sometimes life breaks us to rebuild us stronger," and those words struck her deeply. She understood now that healing doesn't happen in isolation. She needed people, and people needed her too. On the 20th day, she received a call from her mentor asking if she wanted to help with a community project. The invitation felt like a door opening after months of locked rooms. Without hesitation, she said yes, knowing this opportunity wasn't random. She spent the next days organizing workshops, helping strangers rediscover their confidence, and offering support to those who felt lost. Every moment she spent helping someone else reminded her of her own journey. She realized she wasn't just healing, she was becoming the person she needed during her darkest days. On the 24th day, she caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at her. This version of her wasn't broken or defeated. She looked alive, focused, and filled with a new kind of fire. She realized she had spent so much time surviving that she had forgotten what living felt like. She no longer woke up wondering why life had taken everything away. She began waking up wondering what new lesson the day would bring. Her pain had transformed into a mission she hadn't planned, but deeply embraced. On the 27th day, she revisited the place she used to go with her ex-partner, a place she had avoided since the breakup. Instead of sadness, she felt gratitude for everything the relationship had taught her. She knew now that letting go wasn't losing. It was making space for something greater. She felt proud of herself for facing the places that once triggered her pain. It made her realize how far she had come in such a short time. Healing wasn't linear, but it was real. On the 30th day, she woke up with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. She had lost everything, yet gained something far more valuable, herself. She finally understood that life wasn't punishing her. It was redirecting her. She took a deep breath and whispered a promise to herself to never again let fear dictate her life. She had walked through darkness and found light she didn't know existed. Purpose had found her when she decided to stop running from her pain. She stepped outside and felt the sunlight wrap around her like a victory she had earned through every tear, every fear, and every silent night. She realized she wasn't starting over. She was starting stronger. She had found her purpose, not in perfection, but in rebuilding herself piece by piece. And from that day on, she carried one truth in her heart. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover who you were meant to be.